2.1. What is reflective writing? Reflective writing is exploration by self-analysis or having a meaningful conversation with yourself in written form. I will abbreviate reflective writing as RW or RW, lowercase. In the simplest terms, RW is discovery through questioning and answering in writing. By looking inward, one can better understand one's place, circumstances, and reality. As a teacher, I'm of the opinion that everyone should know what they are doing in their lives, with their lives, and why. If necessary or desired, one should be able to articulate the sentiment with others. RW involves investigating and analyzing personal thoughts, emotions, and insights related to a topic, subject, situation, and experience. It involves introspection and contemplation, allowing one to consider, analyze, and evaluate their own thoughts and actions. RW often revolves around observations and/or reactions to certain events, aiming to gain a deeper understanding, learn from those experiences, and develop greater self-awareness. RW is a form of metacognition, or thinking about your thinking. It is interesting to consider, but I think that a lot of people agree that if their thinking improves, then so does their capacity to navigate reality and lead a better life. Why else would so many of us undertake so many years of schooling? What occurred to me was that RW really is a cheat code to improve your thinking and level up. It challenges you to articulate your thoughts and gives you your own benchmarks to weigh them against. There doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all reflective writing like in some academic settings. The type of RW I want you to partake in is mostly about going with the flow. Of course, to help direct flow, I will provide structure and appropriate scaffolding as necessary. For those who didn't watch the first video on my background, or just as a refresher, these acronyms stand for QALY, Quality of Life Improvement, and you can see the koala bear there to help you remember. Ta-da, like a wizard saying ta-da, which you can see, is for talent discovery, development, alignment, application. And SPECO, and you can see a gecko, and in our case, it's a SPECO, which stands for Sustainable Business, Entrepreneurship, Community Organizing. The purpose of this video series is about QALY, so that will be the main theme our reflections revolve around. The sub-theme, and in many ways co-theme, will be tada, as this puts the onus on us as individuals for QALY. Additionally, another sub-theme or co-theme will be SPECO. I will walk you through the different types of RW, and you can choose what is appropriate for your context and circumstances. We will start with non-writing inquiry, followed by the most basic documenting, and eventually we will build up to exercises that can put your RW skills on display. A unique time in history. We have gotten to a very exciting time in our history as humans. Our technology has evolved to the point where we can search for information and find very useful answers quickly. This is why it is especially important to start asking ourselves questions related to what really matters to us as individuals and society as a whole. Most of us wake up every day to the daily survival scramble of getting to where we need to be, or doing something, or having something, the same as almost everyone else. Picture a ball being snapped from scrimmage in football. The offense is trying to go forward, the defense is trying to stop it. Or picture the scramble of going on a trip. The sentiment is like the Beach Boys song, I want to get there fast, to take it slow. This process of daily survival is on autopilot for a lot of us. RW and the other frameworks are about better identifying what it is. The French have an expression, je ne sais quoi. It doesn't translate perfectly, but the gist is about approaching the essence. That is what RW can do for you if you let it. It can help you analyze and probe to find that one thing, like in City Slickers, or multiple things. It can help you assemble a life you want to race to like a circuit and repeat until you find something you like even more. By connecting with your authentic self, you will see there's nothing too big or too small. This part of you is sometimes crystal clear, but a lot of times it is mysterious and entangled. Our better history is predicated on us finding out what we are good at, can do, need to do, and coming together to get it done. RW is a strategy in its own right, but by also keeping in mind you can use different types of RW and better RW strategies and tools. When you consider this and implement this, you really open yourself up for massive growth and fulfillment. Whatever meaningful endeavor you are undertaking or want to undertake, there are strategic approaches one can implement. Taking this into consideration, a key aspect of the type of RW we aim to engage in is to enhance our strategic thinking and problem-solving abilities. Good leaders know how to arrange their team or components in a way that maximizes output. A successful endeavor typically involves a strategy or formation where the sum exceeds the parts. You need to be this type of person for yourself first. So some of the RW we are going to do will acknowledge how to address deficits and which strategies to use to bridge these deficits in order to accomplish tasks. When strengths, deficits, and strategies are addressed and are in place, one has the greatest promise of accomplishing the task. I think more individuals need to know this, and as a community and a society, we need to consider how we can better support each other through these means. The main disciplines, frameworks, or themes we shall consider are quali, tada, specco. This is mostly congruent with the way this material is organized and interrelated. As a current student myself, my discipline, educational leadership, asks that I write in APA 7, American Psychological Association 7th edition, with the current and future goal to continue improving as a teacher, analyst, and researcher. Sometimes I will slightly adjust my formatting as I see fit, but I will try to follow APA 7 as close as possible. In my opinion, there is some ambiguity in the changing landscape of production tools, formatting, and mediums, along with what is relevant to the target audience. Also, as a teacher investigating quali, tada, specco, we will follow some already established structures to writing. We will go into more details about what these are in the next section. We will use many different tools and approaches to advance ourselves within these themes. Like I alluded to earlier, these tools are types of RW that will amplify our output. Also, I am not suggesting you need to follow APA 7 formatting like me, but clearly organizing your thinking will eventually help you in structured inquiry. Some people prefer to write out on paper or a journal, and to each is their own. I prefer to write in Cloud Docs. This way I can easily update and do all sorts of interesting other things. This is especially helpful for organizing and sharing. Notable examples of RW. Some particularly useful historical examples of RW I want to highlight that clearly illustrate the benefits are from Marcus Aurelius, Benjamin Franklin, and Andy Warhol. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius served as Emperor of Rome and is a historical figure who is heavily referenced. He is regarded as one of the 5 good emperors of Rome who presided over Pax Romana, a golden age for Rome. When Aurelius took over as the emperor, he faced many challenges and conflicts, but through RW, he was able to deal with these hardships and make the most out of them. Aurelius is best known for his personal writings, known as Meditations, which are a collection of his thoughts and reflections on Stoic philosophy and ethics. He wrote them in Greek, mostly during his military campaigns, as a source of guidance and self-improvement. Aurelius utilized RW as a means of practicing Stoicism, a philosophy centered on living in harmony with nature and reason. What stands out to me about Stoicism is that it boils down to focusing on controlling the things you can and not emphasizing the things you can't. Meditation served as a diary or journal where he documented the things he was going through. But it was more than just documenting, because it included reflection on actions and emotions related to virtuous themes like duty, death, and contemplation of the divine. The work is composed of short, concise passages and are often written in a conversational tone, suggesting that they were intended as a means of strategic internal dialogue and self reflection. The writings take the form of a series of short reminders and aphorisms directed at himself. Aurelius's writings often focus on the importance of living in the present moment, cultivating inner tranquility, and detaching oneself from external circumstances. Through RW, he engaged in self examination, seeking self improvement and guidance based on Stoic principles. The journal was a tool for reminding himself of Stoic values and their practical application in daily life as both an emperor and an individual. He challenged himself to conquer weaknesses, temper passions, and nurture virtues and wisdom. Importantly, Meditations was penned for his personal growth and fulfillment rather than for public consumption. It is a timeless work on how to keep aspiring for the best despite continuous tumult and setbacks. It is believed that Stoic principles have influenced the lives of George Washington and Andrew Carnegie. Bill Clinton has referred to Meditations as a favorite. Ryan Holiday has gone in depth explaining Stoic principles in The Obstacle is the Way and on his YouTube channel. Holiday does a great job interpreting and explaining Stoic principles in a practical way, so we're going to explore his work much more. You can find the links at our Google site, sites.google.com/view/consult-Ricky. Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was one of the founding fathers of the United States and is on the $100 bill. His most notable achievement was helping draft the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. He also was arguably the first U.S. diplomat, as he served as U.S. ambassador to France from roughly 1776 to 1785, securing key aid and support from France during the Revolutionary War. Early on in his life, Benjamin Franklin discovered the power of RW to enhance his writing skills and express himself. He adopted a method of emulating admired writers like those from the British periodical The Spectator. Using these skills, he went on to write Poor Richard's Almanac and published the Pennsylvania Gazette. RW made it possible for Franklin to make contributions to society as an author and as a publisher. Franklin also made major contributions as a scientist and inventor. He developed the Franklin stove, which made home heating more efficient. Through his work in electricity, he developed the lightning rod, which helps ground electricity and minimize property damage. His work was so notable, it gained him recognition in Europe as a top scientist, which was unprecedented at the time. Franklin developed bifocal glasses because he was having the vision problem presbyopia, an age-related condition that makes it difficult to focus on nearby objects. He also developed a flexible urinary catheter for his brother who suffered from kidney stones. All of this is definitely a testament to his practical application of scientific knowledge and his capacity to analyze and reflect. Franklin became the first U.S. Postmaster General in 1775 and played a vital role in establishing the U.S. postal system. He also contributed to the establishment of the first public lending library in Philadelphia and the formation of the University of Pennsylvania. His writing encompassed personal experiences, challenges, lessons learned, and reflections on his goals, values, and beliefs. Franklin continually used writing as a tool for self-education, introspection, and personal growth. Through his own trials and errors, he employed R.W. to chronicle his life's events and accomplishments. His autobiography serves as a fascinating, self-reflective piece on his character and actions. Penn State University Libraries has released his writings to the public. Links are at our Google site. Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol was arguably the founder of the pop art movement and was hugely influential for bringing concepts like consumerism and celebrity worship into the international spotlight. His work blurred the lines between high and low culture, questioning the nature of fame and mass media. I think he is a great example of the different forms reflection and exploration can take. Warhol's images and takes on consumer goods and celebrities such as Campbell's soup cans, Coca-Cola bottles, and Marilyn Monroe are still iconic images to this day. He founded a studio, The Factory, which became a hub for artists, musicians, writers, and celebrities. He produced and directed experimental films and managed a rock band. He also founded Interview magazine, which became a leading source of celebrity interviews and pop culture news. Warhol was not only one of the most influential and controversial artists of his time, challenging the conventional notions of art, culture, and status, he was also a prolific businessman, one who was able to generate value through his relationships and connections. He was able to translate them into artistic success and endorsements. He openly lived his values and was almost killed by a gunshot to the stomach. He survived, but at a great cost to his health. Warhol left behind a multifaceted legacy that extended beyond his renowned visual artworks. He used reflective writing as a way to explore his own identity, as well as the society and culture he lived in. He also used reflective writing as a way to communicate with his audience and to influence and inspire other artists. His commitment to documentation manifested in nearly 12 years of meticulously kept diaries spanning from roughly 1976 to 1987, providing an intimate glimpse into his daily life, thoughts, and emotions. Part of this was inspired by him making political enemies from some of his artwork, and he thought by tracking his spending so thoroughly he would not face detrimental consequences from an IRS, Internal Revenue Service, audit. Alongside his visual artistry, Warhol displayed literary artistry through his works like The Philosophy of Andy Warhol, a collection of reflections on his many talents and perspectives as an artist. Warhol was able to venture further and further into creative expression, much beyond conventional boundaries. I believe this is a direct result of the way he used reflective practices in his artwork and life. Warhol was a creative pioneer across many different mediums, and his impact on 20th century culture was immense. He left most of his estate to the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, which supports artists and art organizations. He also donated some of his artworks to museums and galleries such as the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, and the Whitney Museum of American Art. I look forward to visiting his museum in Pittsburgh and to viewing his work across the world. Links are at our Google site. Importance, significance, purpose. From the perspective of formal education, RW's major purpose is to facilitate learning from past actions, understand emotions, and enhance skills or knowledge in order to move forward. Some key characteristics include, but are not limited to, using first-person language, employing descriptive details, interpreting the experience's significance, and showcasing personal growth or future changes. This is a useful distinction to make because some academic settings really emphasize using the active voice or as opposed to the passive voice or some other structure that is required for whatever criteria is being measured. I can't emphasize enough that RW should be used to benefit you where you are on your journey. These are just some objective characteristics to contemplate if you want to consider or use more formal RW techniques. You can learn from past actions, you can learn from the present and potential future scenarios. If you are open enough, you can learn from practically any experience. To paraphrase Socrates, stupid people already have all the answers, common people learn from their own experiences, and smart people learn from everything and everyone. Zinsser, an authority on writing, who has published multiple books on the nuances of writing, explains that learning to write requires you to write, which is why I'm going to continually give you writing prompts. You can learn a lot by observing others writing, but you will also see tremendous growth by undertaking your own writing. Other important ideas from Zinsser are that you should write and rewrite to make sure you say what you want to say concisely, which is subjective and decided by you. This is because writing makes you think clearly about what you really want to say. Zinsser explains that he doesn't really like the process of writing, but likes the results it delivers. According to multiple sources, when asked how to get started with writing or whose works is most cited and referenced are used in school curriculums, the consensus appears to be Zinsser. Do you agree or disagree? I would like to know. Also, I have provided links to Zinsser's bios and materials at our Google site. Zinsser, who worked as professor of writing nonfiction at Yale for many years, explains writing in two broad categories for beginners: explanatory and exploratory. Explanatory or type 1 writing is about conciseness, order, logic, grammar, which Zinsser argues there is usually a significant lack of. There is also usually a sequential order to this type of writing that demonstrates logic. Exploratory or type 2 writing is about associations with a greater emphasis on expression. Zinsser claims that this approach applies to writing fiction as well. To recap, common RW formats include descriptions of an event or topic, an interpretation of thoughts and learning, and an outcome or plan for the future. Remember, RW can also take other forms too, such as journals, essays, or even creative pieces. I have tried to present some diverse introductory historical examples provided by Marcus Aurelius, Benjamin Franklin, and Andy Warhol. As demonstrated, RW encourages individuals to critically analyze their thoughts and experiences to facilitate personal growth and learning. By no means is this list exhaustive. It is only the beginning. Who else do you think should be added? In the next sections, we are going to look at many different aspects of RW and reflective practices and the diverse ways you can apply them. For instance, in a collaborative or group project scenario, one might describe the project, interpret the experience and challenges faced, and discuss the gained skills and newfound awareness about the subject matter's impact. This will be part of 2.3, deeper into reflective writing with brainstorming and creative thinking. We're also going to talk about how RW works well with STEM, as it requires knowledge of concepts and procedures. Many educational consulting firms have published reports on the benefits and challenges of integrating writing across the curriculum and disciplines, and we will go into more detail in section 2.2, a brief history of writing in school. But if you only take away one thing from all of this, it is that writing is a powerful tool. The type of RW I want you to learn is very underrated and underutilized in my opinion. RW can help you learn, communicate, and it can enhance your capacity for critical thinking, creativity, and academic performance. Why you need to start now. RW is very helpful in other ways too, as sometimes we have thoughts and feelings of fear, doubt, and uncertainty. As soon as we commit to putting them down on paper or some type of written form, they are challenged and can lose their potency in overwhelming us. I consider typing a written form. RW to help with fear and uncertainty. Sian Beilock. Sian Beilock, a cognitive scientist, multiple award winner, and author of the book Choke, has worked with top organizations in sports, industry, and government. She is the current president of Dartmouth College. According to Beilock, writing about one's worries before a high-stakes exam can boost test scores by reducing the negative impact of anxiety on working memory. Beilock explains that when people are anxious about an upcoming test, they tend to ruminate about the situation and its consequences, which takes up valuable mental resources that could be used for solving problems. By expressing their thoughts and feelings in writing, they can offload some of the cognitive burden and free up more space for reasoning. Beilock and her colleagues have tested this hypothesis in several studies, both in the laboratory and in the classroom. They found that students who wrote about their test-related worries for 10 minutes before taking a math test performed better than those who wrote about an unrelated topic or did nothing. This effect was especially pronounced for students who are habitually anxious about test taking. Beilock also found that writing about one's worries can improve performance in other domains, such as public speaking and sports. With the rigor of science, Beilock has demonstrated that writing it out correlates to working memory gains. I think this is a really important distinction, as it validates RW in objective ways along with subjective ways. Beilock's research supports my claim that RW has multiple benefits. This particular technique is a simple and effective tool for enhancing performance under pressure. By writing about one's worries, one can reduce the negative emotions and thoughts that interfere with optimal functioning. Going further, Beilock argues that this strategy can help people achieve their full potential in academics, work, and life. Links are at our Google site. Are you truly self-aware? Tasha Eurich. Tasha Eurich is an organizational psychologist, researcher, and New York Times best-selling author. Her TEDx talk on self-awareness has been viewed millions of times. She has worked with and helped individuals and top organizations from around the world from all different backgrounds. Her consulting services have benefited her clients in varied scope and capacity. Urich's book, Insight, explains that even though many of us claim that we are self-aware, when challenged by objective criteria, most of us do not make the grade. For the sake of this work, let us look at this as a growth opportunity. Her criteria uses two distinct categories to measure self-awareness: internal and external. Internal self-awareness refers to having a deep understanding of one's own values, personality, strengths, and weaknesses. External self-awareness refers to understanding how others perceive us. Based on this, Urich's research found that only 10 to 15% of people are truly self-aware. This is in stark contrast to the initial survey claims of 95% of people identifying that they are self-aware. This suggests that most people struggle with accurately perceiving themselves. Urich refers to the 10 to 15% as unicorns because people who are actually self-aware are rare and unique, but claims that you can be one too. I agree with her findings and strongly believe that reflective practices, and especially RW, is the key. Unicorns possess both types of self-awareness, internal and external, and they are unique in their ability to see themselves more objectively, with less bias or distortion. Urich notes that unicorns are not necessarily more intelligent or talented than others. Instead, they have unique practices that enable them to see themselves more objectively. They are more readily able to recognize their blind spots and biases, and they actively work to overcome them. We're going to put a lot of emphasis on doing this too. We're going to continually work at identifying our own values, personality, strengths, and weaknesses throughout this video series. A good portion of reflection revolves around what these factors mean to us and how they need to be arranged. According to Urich, starting the process of self-reflection is important to start now because it can help us improve our self-awareness, which is a key skill for success and happiness in life and work. Urich agrees that self-awareness is not something that we are born with or that we can achieve by introspection alone. Rather, it is a skill we can develop through deliberate practice and feedback from others. Another reason why I want this community to be a success. What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree? Disagree? Why? Links are at our Google site. The mirrors and windows of reflection. As the term means in another definition, reflection is also like a mirror. Through many experiences talking with those I am familiar with, strangers, and my own contemplation, I realize how easily we criticize others. Also, the elaboration of criticism of others is quite detailed and insightful. We see this every day on social media and the news. I wish I and others could apply just a fraction of that same criticism to ourselves. Imagine how much this could transform the world we live in. Another way to look at self awareness is the ability to see ourselves clearly, something like a mirror, but also thinking about self awareness as a window is helpful too, because we need to keep working to understand who we are, how others see us, and how we fit into the world. It is not just a destination, but more like a journey. By starting the process of improving our self reflection skills now, we can become more aware of ourselves and our impact on the world, thus living more fulfilling and meaningful lives. Yet another reason to commit to starting RW now. Getting to yes with yourself first. William Ury. William Ury is a negotiation expert and author of multiple books and articles on negotiating. His academic background is in anthropology, and he is driven by an altruistic vision of peace. He has won numerous awards related to peacekeeping and conflict resolution. Many view him as the world's top negotiator because he has served in various extremely high-stakes negotiation roles. He has held titles like lead negotiator, advisor, mediator, and consultant in very serious conflicts ranging from hostile labor disputes to all-out wars and civil wars. Not only can he negotiate, but he also teaches negotiation and mediation through Harvard's program on negotiation. I have not read all of Ury's books and articles yet, but I plan to because of how important I think skills in negotiation are to quality. Interestingly, though, Ury states that getting to yes with yourself should be considered a prequel to his other negotiation works. After completing years of work in negotiation, Ury wrote Getting to Yes with Yourself in 2015. One of his biggest insights was that a lot of our frustrations with others can be linked to frustrations with ourselves and our lack of clarity and direction. What do you think about this? Do you agree, disagree, or have other thoughts? One must learn to first get to yes with oneself, and this is one of the strongest arguments for starting on RW. Ury argues that our internal conflicts and lack of clarity often lead to frustration and ineffective communication in our external interactions. So in essence, getting to yes with yourself is about understanding yourself first. Next, one can learn to align their actions with authentic values and goals, which we're going to do step by step. Another way to look at getting to yes with yourself is through the lens of internal conflict, which in my opinion is not done enough. This is because we constantly suffer from an inner civil war, conflicting desires, confusing priorities, uncertainty over what we truly want. This sabotages our ability to handle external conflicts wisely. By cultivating internal clarity and self-awareness, we can discover our deepest interests and values. Also, this helps anchor tricky negotiations with others. Ury describes the process of getting to yes with yourself in a multifaceted way. One that is part self-discovery, self-acceptance, self-empowerment, but ultimately one that can transform your personal and professional life. Getting to yes with yourself is subjective and requires refocusing the self-talk in your mind and moving from self-doubt and objections to curiosity and affirmation aligned with your core needs. Don't worry, this isn't required to do in one sitting, but it is a skill that can be acquired. A fundamental aspect of the work we're going to do through this video series is first about observation. Then we can continue to learn and practice techniques to quiet our obstructive inner critic and strengthen our constructive inner mentor. According to Ury, this builds self-confidence and self-direction, essential to progress. Ultimately, the inability to effectively handle conflicts with others is often a symptom of inner confusion and self-sabotage. So mastering self-negotiation comes first. By understanding our deepest motivations and directing our inner dialogue productively, we build the foundation needed to successfully overcome differences with others and reach mutually fulfilling agreements. Ury says that getting to yes with yourself can help us achieve our true goals, improve our relationships, and enhance our well-being. Getting to yes with yourself is especially important to do now because we live in a world of increasing interdependence and conflict where we need to collaborate and cooperate with others more than ever. Links are at our Google site. Improving at Mind Games, Denise Shull. If you've ever watched the show Billions, you have heard of Denise Shull, and possibly without knowing it. The show's character Wendy Rhodes is derived from the real-life work Shull has been doing for years. Shull serves as the CEO and lead performance coach at the Rethink Group, Inc., a consultancy specializing in human performance and decision making. She has been a pioneer in taking in academic theories and making them relevant to top financiers, professionals, and elite athletes. I will have to do more research to confirm, but it seems like some fields of research have come directly out of her work. Her unique MA from the University of Chicago was in neuropsychoanalysis, 1995, and her thesis was the neurobiology of Freud's theory of repetition compulsion. Drawing upon her distinct expertise in neuroscience, neuroeconomics, and modern psychoanalysis, she has crafted the Shull method, an innovative approach to mental skills that places a premium on emotions for achieving peak performance and overcoming psychological obstacles. Her work is now used in many different contexts. Shull makes several references to journaling in Market Mind Games. She claims that the most astute money managers know more about themselves and their decision-making heuristics than the markets. She argues that emotions are not a hindrance, but a data source that can help individuals and investors make better decisions. She strongly advocates for the use of journaling as a way to increase self-awareness, track emotional patterns, and improve confidence and performance. Shull lays out many aspects and applications of RW which can be used in high-stakes decision-making. She advises examining one's own perception, which can be easily done by simply recording one's thoughts and feelings related to an event. She encourages the use of storytelling to develop a narrative that can easily be shared. Shull emphasizes the power of acknowledgement in relation to events and experiences, good or bad, and claims that this can be done simply by committing to write it down. Shull also emphasizes the power of writing to quiet some of the mind's racing thoughts. Shull describes an aspect of modern psychoanalysis pragmatically by stating that as information is gleaned, it can be used for your benefit. This is in contrast to what Freud describes as transference, or the compulsion to repeat. When an impulse or emotion, i.e., signal, is acknowledged and examined, the mental alert system is quelled, and now the data can be organized in a way that suits our own purposes. By implementing the reflective practices we have described, one can approach elusive aspects of the unconscious to improve well-being. Shull goes much deeper into examining the mind with concepts like EC, emotional context, how fractals relate to emotion and reasoning, along with parsing intuition and impulse. We will explore this more later. The big takeaway is there is much more to learn, but as always, consider how you can adapt it to your needs and the work you are doing. Links are at our Google site. 2.2 How to Reflect, Q&A, Self-Analysis. Non-writing, questioning as meditative. Start reflecting with simply questioning. You don't have to write everything down always. I suggest to do it when you feel like you want to. Come with the energy and intention that you are looking for answers and ask away. In your mind, when you think of meditation, what comes up? I personally have been exposed again and again to the idea of meditation being limited to something that you have to sit down to do. As I've shared with you in Chapter 1, the meditations I have seen practiced typically revolve around repeating a mantra and coupling this with deep breathing. But by investigating further, I think that types of questioning also qualify as a type of meditation. Also, I don't think you just need to be sitting to meditate. You can stand, lay down, walk, do what you need to do to focus your best. Note: the teacher in me wants to share a quick definition with you. The word etymology is about the linguistic history of a word, basically what the origin of the word is and how it has changed over time. Etymology is a more specific type of history that relates to language. Linguistics is a subject that studies language in an abstract way. Moving forward, I want to do this in every section, but for now, I'm a bit more selective and using it where I think it is essential to support the premises laid out. Etymology of meditate. The earliest origins I can find related to the word meditation are derived from the Indo-European root med, meaning to measure or to consider, which then turned into the Latin word meditatum, meaning to ponder, the verb meditare, means to think, contemplate, devise, or ponder. Another related Latin term, meditatio, also means contemplation or reflection. Meditatio entered English around 1200 from Old French directly from Latin. At this time, it referred to contemplation, devout preoccupation, private devotions, and prayer. It also encompassed the idea of thoughtful consideration, pondering, and engaging in mental exercises. So, meditation in this sense refers to a period of introspection, quiet contemplation, or reflection. This ties into some of the core ideas of modern day meditation definitions, which typically involve mental flexibility, such as focusing or detaching your mind, and contemplating or not contemplating something. Now, you can think about questioning as a form of meditation too, considering that there isn't just one type of meditation, and by questioning, you open yourself up to potentially game changing new experiences. The important takeaway is that you do get answers right away, but the deeper you go, the more elaborate your discoveries are. Also, the answers you come up with and how they relate to other aspects of your being are profound. Writing is meditation. Regarding the connection between writing and meditation, there is evidence to support the idea that writing can be considered a form of meditation as well. Writing can be meditation because it involves similar processes of mental flexibility we just laid out. I don't think this is discussed, valued, or used enough. I personally find writing as one of the most useful types of meditation and think it holds tremendous value as a standalone meditation or as a conjunctive meditation. We have already discussed many different types of RW, and what I am suggesting now is to consider this as meditation too. We can even give it a label and call it writing meditation or some other variation. When writing, we can experience time in different ways and have different types of freedom of expression. I personally consider this a flow state, usually as described by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, but sometimes when I'm grinding out my writing, I think of this as deliberate practice, as described by Anders Ericsson. Writing is meditation as an action or act, or as a tool and structure. When writing, we can and can't overthink, and we can go for a set amount of time or not. The content doesn't always need to make sense or follow any logical order, and it's not always about the quality of writing, but just the act of writing itself. Also, the fact that Marcus Aurelius' writings are called meditations, along with the linguistic history of the modern word meditation, strongly support my claim. My initial research has revealed that Marcus Aurelius' writings were never titled. Posthumously, many years later, the original title used was To Himself, translated from Ta es Houten. The fact that the work was written in Koine Greek, a language that was not commonly used for official public documents at the time, further supports this claim. There is evidence to suggest the title To Himself was given around 900 CE by Aurelius of Caesarea, a Byzantine scholar and archbishop. The title Meditations was given later by editors and or translators seeking to capture the essence of the work for a wider audience. These private writings were considered so valuable, it was agreed they needed to be preserved and disseminated, so they continued to be circulated. The historic consensus was that the writings reflected a meditative quality. Also, they explored philosophical ideas and served as a record of self-reflection, which aligns with the concept of meditation. So Meditations is now the canonical title, and although the original Greek title does not necessarily imply meditation exactly in the modern sense of the word, I think it supports the fact that writing, if done in a certain way, can be considered meditative. Thus, writing can be much like the practice of seated meditation because it overlaps with concepts and central principles of meditation. So, was all writing meditation? Not necessarily. I think it depends on the intention, purpose, and depth of engagement. Writing a simple grocery list or a quick email wouldn't typically be considered meditative because of the scope. This applies to questioning as meditation as well. However, the type of reflective practices we have been discussing, such as exploration through questioning and answering, and writing, should be, because they typically involve focused contemplation. Make a list. The next logical step past just writing your ideas down is making a list. A list allows you to start thinking about your writing in different ways. You can first just start by compiling information, ideas. Next, you can start to categorize. A list is a very simple yet powerful tool. The next variation of the list is a pro-con list. Think of an idea, topic, a decision you have made or need to make, and make two lists, one highlighting the pros and the other the cons. You can make a checklist or to-do list too. With a checklist or to-do list, you can easily categorize tasks into levels of importance in ascending or descending order. The point is to get started with writing. A list is probably one of the easiest ways to start getting organized, and remember, all this ties into our themes of quali, tada, and specco. Again, as a refresher, these acronyms stand for quality of life improvement, talent discovery, development, alignment, application, sustainable business, entrepreneurship, community organizing. Sometimes just writing down ideas can lead to a jumbled mess. This is totally okay. Lists are another tool you have at your disposal to help you organize your thoughts, making them easier to understand and analyze. Also, lists can help you identify patterns in relationships. A simple list, pro-con list, checklist, or to-do list can lay out information vertically or side by side. This could further help you to start seeing your material in a new way. A list allows you to prioritize items based on importance, urgency, or any other criteria. This is helpful for making decisions or developing a plan. While lists may seem rigid or burdensome, they can actually spark creativity. Ultimately, the process of RW is cyclical. You might revisit writing, listing, and these other steps multiple times as you refine your ideas and advance your writing. Seeing and revisiting a list of ideas can definitely continue to trigger new connections and generate different thoughts. In part 2, TDDAA, we are going to continue to dig deeper into learning specific skills such as mind maps, diagrams, etc., and other creative variations on lists related to synthesizing and connecting ideas. Intro to Critical Thinking. According to Paul and Elder, critical thinking is the disciplined practice of employing your utmost cognitive abilities in any situation. 2014. A simple way to understand critical thinking is to be a critic of your thinking. This means keeping an open mind, looking at facts, and exploring ideas that differ from your own understanding and views. Paul and Elder are authorities in teaching and learning critical thinking. They have published more than 20 works related to the subject. Additionally, Richard Paul established the Center for Critical Thinking and the Foundation for Critical Thinking. Linda Elder is the Executive Director and President, respectively. We're going to spend lots of time going deeper into critical thinking, learning, and problem solving because it is intertwined with everything we are trying to accomplish. For now, consider that in order to optimize the caliber of your thinking, prioritizing learning about thinking is required. Paul and Elder state that the most proficient thinkers grasp thinking as an evolving process owned through years of deliberate practice. 2014. Again, the emphasis is on the journey, but as your thinking does improve, you will recognize greater truths and see things you did not see before and things others do not see. Be ready and willing to evolve your thinking as you gain greater truth, perspective, and outcomes. Also, to reiterate in a different way, one of the best ways to be a critic of your thinking is to write it down and reflect on it. Another integral piece of being a critic of your thinking is asking essential questions. They are fundamental to improving one's thinking and situation. Essential questions are another tool we're going to use for quali, as Paul and Elder have developed sophisticated frameworks and models to ask and answer them. A fascinating argument presented by Paul and Elder is, can you be a good thinker without being a good questioner? What do you think? In response to Paul and Elder, I don't think you can be a good thinker without being a good questioner. Questions serve several key purposes. Primarily, they outline and specify tasks that need to be accomplished. Additionally, questions articulate problems that require solutions. Furthermore, questions help to clearly define and set the boundaries around particular issues or topics under consideration. Asking essential questions is an art because questions are one of the most potent tools in our arsenal for blueprinting reality and outlining our navigational plan for a better version of it. The progression of critical thinking depends on answering, prompting additional questions. A lack of questions can indicate stagnation and an absence of understanding. This is why we are going to proceed with questions that keep us going. PPP questions: probing, provoking, and process. To get started with PPP questions, I want things to be user-friendly and as simple as possible. So to re-emphasize, think of the next types of questioning as just having a meaningful conversation with yourself. You are to tell your story. With this approach, you allow yourself a lot of flexibility and slack for engagement as we continue on some potentially life and reality altering subjects. Sales expert Keenan corroborates my views on reflecting and questioning through conversation. There are lots of different types of questions you can ask yourself in a meaningful conversation, but I think that starting with PPP questions is very helpful for multiple reasons. Not only are these meaningful questions, but I think the broader categories established to classify questioning types is especially beneficial. They help you recognize that questions can be broken down into different types and can serve different purposes as well. This strengthens your capacity for metacognition and getting to what is essential. Keenan uses a variation of these questions in his gap selling approach, which emphasizes the importance of identifying and understanding a current state and trying to go where you would like to be more. Another way to look at this is as a vision you would like to make a reality. Keenan describes this approach through a prospecting approach. In sales talk, a prospect is a potential customer, client, or someone you aim to persuade with your solution. Keenan describes the gap selling process as one intended to examine a prospect's current state, desired future state, and the gap between the two, with the goal being to position your solution as the bridge that can fill this gap. With Keenan's approach, the emphasis is on helping the prospect bridge the gap. I want you to also adapt Keenan's gap selling approach to our main themes: quali, tada, and specco. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time, but it's really important to get started. Essentially, we need to figure out what reality we want to work towards. I'm a firm believer that you cannot separate belief from reality. We will go into the evidence I have to support my claims in Chapter 4, Essential Reality, but for now, use the structure of these three types of questioning to start to figure out what the gap is between where you are and where you would like to be more. Probing questions. The word probe originated from the Latin word probare, a noun which means to test, try, or examine. As it made its way into English, the verb probe initially meant to investigate or explore something thoroughly or to search and scrutinize. Additionally, it meant to interrogate, often with the intention of discovering hidden information or finding solutions to a problem. Probe also referred to a tool or instrument used for probing or testing, particularly in medical contexts. Over time, the term evolved to encompass a range of meanings, including the act of asking, searching questions to gather information or elicit thoughtful responses. Probing questions are designed to gather a broad range of information about situations, circumstances, issues, problems, an organization, and expectations. They help in understanding your current state. The goal is to uncover the key details and crucial specifics behind your answers. A probing question is one that goes beyond surface level inquiry. It aims to reveal hidden aspects, motivations, or details that might not be readily apparent. Think of a probing question like drilling down. You use them to follow up on interesting points or get a clearer picture of the situation. Through my own trial and error, in my opinion, the simplest way to start critical thinking and probing is to start with the 5 W's. Pick a topic, subject, or something and answer who, what, when, where, and why. The response can be as simple as just one detail to begin with. Next, you can start to answer the question how. As you start developing responses, you can ask follow-up 5 W's and how. Keenan also corroborates my perspective on starting with the 5 W's and to keep going to really get to the heart of the matter. These questions help you peel back the layers and expose the root causes or underlying issues you are facing. Keep reflecting on your situation and continue to gather valuable information that can be used to identify gaps in your current state versus your desired state. We're going to go much deeper into probing questions with the Socratic method in section 2.3. A simple example for a probing question could go like this. Instead of just asking, "How was your day?" a probing question might be, "What was the most interesting part of your day?" Probing questions seek specifics, and they ask for concrete details rather than vague generalities. Probing questions follow up, they delve into prior responses to get a clearer picture. Or instead of just asking, "What can I do to improve my situation?" a probing question might be, "What is one thing I can do to improve my situation?" Or, "What is one thing I can do right now to improve my situation?" Provoking questions. The word provoke comes from the Latin term provocare, which means to call forth or challenge. It is composed of the prefix pro, meaning forth, and vocare, meaning to call, which is related to vox, meaning voice. The term has been used in English since the late 14th century. Initially, it was used in medical contexts to stimulate or to induce certain actions. Over time, it evolved to mean urge, incite, and stimulate to action. A provoking question can be used to spark debate or discussion. It's not easily answered with a simple yes or no and encourages exploration of different viewpoints. It's meant to challenge the person being asked and encourage them to think more critically or feel more deeply about the subject at hand. A provoking question can also be used to elicit a strong reaction, stimulate deep thought, or provoke an emotional response or action. Questions can be charged, inciting, or edgy, and are often used to stimulate discussion or reflection. By disrupting the status quo and conventional wisdom, you're essentially stirring up your own mind or a listener's mind and going off autopilot. Whether positively in the case of intellectual curiosity or potentially negatively when it irks or offends. Another way to look at it is tapping into the questions that make you want to fight, flight, and or freeze. When you elicit fight, flight, freeze responses, you also help identify pain-pleasure points. Pain-pleasure points are a way to describe the most important issues, or at least the things that will trigger you. Your job is to examine why. A lot of psychology supports the view that most of us will avoid pain rather than gain pleasure. This is a very broad generalization of pain-pleasure, but my point is that there are certain things that are more important to you. You need to keep searching until you find them. These pain-pleasure points lead to deep and meaningful engagement. In part 2, we will go deeper into how these things break down into means goals and end goals, but for now, start searching and identify them for yourself. They can be used to set up a mental framework to push and pull you forward, or to put it another way, the buttons you push to motivate yourself are the dials you turn to magnify or reduce intensity. Provoking questions have a unique way of stirring up emotions and engaging you in ways other methods do not. It's not as simple as provoking questions make you feel and not reason, but they should tap into aspects of your being that truly move you. These questions aim to make you realize the extent of your problems, which you may not fully understand. They are meant to challenge your thinking and create a sense of urgency. The goal is to challenge yourself and consider the bigger picture or unseen consequences of your situation. By challenging yourself and your assumptions and beliefs, it encourages you to consider aspects you may not have thought of before, leading to a deeper understanding of your needs and potential solutions. Provoking questions help you to reevaluate approaches or a process too. These questions will help you temporarily get out of your comfort zone to identify potential gaps or areas for improvement. We all have areas we have overlooked related to discomfort. Provoking questions help us see past bias and blind spots. It takes practice to do though, because most of us usually don't want to be uncomfortable. Think about the things you like about your situation. Think about the things you love about your situation. Think about the things you don't like about your situation. Think about the things you hate about your situation. Process questions. The word process comes from the Latin term processus, which means to go forward and advance. The term has been used in French as process since the late 14th century. It was used to describe a journey, continuation, and directly. At the time, it also meant development in the context of legal trials. Over time, the concept of process evolved to encompass various systems and disciplines such as STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and social sciences. In these fields, process refers to a series of events or activities that transform inputs into outputs, often with the intention of achieving a desired outcome or resolving a problem. This is why process questions can also be considered introductory systems thinking, a subject we're going to explore further. What I want you to take away from this is that now we're really investigating the how of things. You may have already begun to do so, but now we are going to keep going and go much further. As we start to understand processes, we can understand our reality in a much different way. We are no longer limited by only cause and effect relationships that equate a single input to a single output. We can analyze our QOL, quality of life, as a function and output with multiple inputs. We're going to put a lot of emphasis on this throughout the series, but I want you to start thinking about this now. With process questions, analysis of our situations can be described systemically. With multiple components, we need to continually optimize and balance. What this means is we can investigate the nuances of correlation, which gives us much more autonomy for arrangement and rearrangement. Sometimes critical distinctions are in the details and can make all the difference to us. This is very important because this will give us a much better chance to adapt, evolve, and transcend our current situation in order to obtain what we truly desire. This ties in directly to the work we're going to do in the next chapter, Chapter 3, QOL, and Section 2, related to habits. Process questions encourage us to consider the underlying components and their impacts on the system as a whole. We can think about system as a whole in a lot of different ways. It can mean a particular situation we are in, a part of our life, or our quality of life. It's really up to you to decide, but process questions aid in defining systemic structures and developing a profound understanding of them. Process questions delve deep into the minutiae of pattern and behavior recognition, now and over time, which are fundamental aspects of systems thinking. Another beneficial aspect of process questions is that they masterfully complement probing and provoking questions by moving past just categorizations. Process questions look at how these parts interact, overlap, and affect the whole. By opening yourself up to these types of subtleties, it really helps you move past only thinking in terms of black or white. It lets you appreciate the 50 shades of gray and the whole spectrum of possibility, which is one of the most important things I want you to learn in this video series. By asking the right process questions, one elevates their capacity for addressing complex problems in a more integrated and strategic manner. One has much more capability at managing compromise and trade-offs, which is much more about what dealing with reality is about. Also, from a different vantage, process questions seek to understand how you execute your processes. By examining and evaluating how you execute processes, it can uncover technical issues and help position components in your life. Process questions that ask you to look at the forest rather than a tree, and vice versa, help you learn how you perform general and specific actions. Process questions help you zoom in and zoom out. There's usually a need to do both as you navigate reality. Another major goal of process questions is to understand your decision-making steps and what leads to desired results. Again, because this is such a broad scope, we also need to narrow decision-making to general and specific contexts. Think about how you get things done, or how things get done in your life or within an organization. The big picture is to understand your general decision-making process. Do you have typical steps you follow when reaching a resolution? Consider how you have to adapt your decision-making processes in different contexts. Is there any mistake you used to make, but upon reflection, you reevaluated your processes and changed your outcomes? Can you identify any roadblocks you may be facing? And is there any relation to how you go about doing things? PPP questions recap. PPP questions validate your understanding of your needs, challenges, and priorities. Again, I do not expect you to get this in one sitting. This is something that will vary in time and scope. It is likely going to be like an unfolding with surprising new angles and locales not seen before. Sometimes it will feel like you are starting over because you are reordering priorities. By recapping, you confirm information and much better ensure that you understand your situation. You are also likely to identify potential solutions to challenges and value propositions you can offer others in exchange. Don't worry if you have not yet. We're going to keep at it until you do. Recapping not only helps you, but it also puts you in a better situation to work with others and get help because you can actually explain what you need to someone else. Paul and Elder 2014 and Keenan emphasize using validating questions to confirm clarity. They suggest to do this by restating what you understood. For instance, one might rephrase the statement as follows. Allow me to summarize my understanding of your message. Could you confirm if I've grasped it correctly? It might seem a bit counterintuitive, but by thinking with the end in mind, you readily identify the gaps or discrepancies between your current situation and your desired outcome. By using this type of strategic questioning, it acts as a guide to navigate your journey effectively. Another key idea is that PPP questioning techniques are used in a conversational, easy to understand manner, using examples and anecdotes to illustrate their importance and application in real conversations you might have with yourself or those who you confide in. With answers to these questions and the generation of new questions, it suggests how we can progress to where we would like to be more. I also want you to keep yourself open to thinking about these questions through the lens of yourself or through the lens of the prospect. Another way to put this is asking for a friend. But as a caution, I don't want to unnecessarily complicate things if this is the first time you're being exposed to these ideas. I'm going to assume and proceed with the assumption that this is the first time you are hearing this. As we continue, keep your eyes on the prize, which is quality, individual and collective. As your skills improve, you can help others too. Keep in mind, the way we're going to do this is with questioning, answering, and reflecting on how you can get there, i.e., the other side of the gap. I'm making a point to emphasize this because considering the perspective of yourself, prospect, and friend all have benefits. Thinking about yourself is a good way to start, and thinking as a prospect or friend is a good way to think about how you might explain your situation to someone else. By taking the perspective of a prospect or friend, you have to articulate and clarify yourself in another way, which is very valuable and will tie in strongly to part 3 of this video series related to community organizing. 2.3. Here's where to go to start writing. Go to our Google site, sites.google.com/view/consult-Ricky. Navigate to the section you want to see, and you can see our desktop version and you can see the phone and tablet version. And a quick note, in previous sections I wrote some other material was going to be in 2.3. I changed the formatting up a little bit after I started recording, so everything is going to be bumped up by 1. So what was in 2.3 before is going to be 2.4, and pretty much everything you see is likely bumped up 1. So just double check and make sure you're in the right section. As we go through the content of the video series, I will provide different materials. I'm going to keep updating the Consult Ricky Google site as I come up with more ideas. I know writing about the things we have been discussing can be deeply personal, which is why I have set things up so you only have to share what you like to. With the way I have set things up, you can easily copy the writing topics, prompts, and questions. If you're not familiar with copying and pasting from a website, no worries, just send me a message, preferably an email, and I'll do my best to support you. Continue to use the content, writing topics, prompts, and questions. Feel free to adjust them or adapt them in ways that make sense to you. It's up to you to analyze and evaluate to determine if your quality of life truly is improving. I'm providing all this material and support because the teacher in me wants you to write, learn, and grow. As you keep writing, you will continue to advance and learn to develop a style that is tailored to your needs and desires. I believe this is very important for you to do, and I can't stress this enough. Keep digging into the material. You will see and know things you didn't before. There will be aha moments regularly as you learn more about yourself and how to advance. When you feel burned out, take a break. We will talk about focus mode and diffuse mode thinking much more, but for now, just understand that when you feel burned out is usually a sign that you've exceeded your capacity. Barbara Oakley, an authority on learning, explains that lots of research supports that the brain has two well-established modes when it comes to learning and problem solving, focused and diffuse. An approach I typically take is to start with focused mode to consciously engage and then switch to diffuse mode to let my subconscious work on the problem too. It usually leads to a deeper understanding and innovative solutions. Reflection intervals. Urich also corroborates my view that writing should be done as desired. As Urich states, studies have shown that journaling has the most benefits when used as necessary. Used as necessary is subjective. My interpretation of this is to use writing as a tool to better yourself and others. It doesn't have to be a burden to the point where if you don't write for that day or extended period of time, you feel like a failure. At the bare minimum, write something at the end of the year, then build up to writing quarterly reviews. Keep building your capacity to monthly, weekly, or whatever seems like the best fit for you. 5-minute session. A technique that has served me well for many years is what I call the just 5 minutes method. Sit down and dedicate 5 minutes to just write down what's on your mind, what comes to mind, and the associated thoughts or whatever enters your mind. Ideas and thoughts have magnetic and attractive qualities. Once you focus your intent on a topic or subject, you begin to pull in or bring in those associated and related thoughts and ideas. Elements of memory and neural networks operate through association, so one of the most important aspects is to turn on the faucet to start the flow, or kindle the spark to grow the fire. Additionally, you can pick a topic like insert whatever. The concept of priming is also very helpful in this context. It's like a warm-up for writing. Priming is a concept in psychology that means if you are exposed to some information, your mind will automatically start to see that information or give you information related to that topic. With priming, exposure to one stimulus influences how you respond to subsequent related stimulus. For example, if I ask you how many good deeds you did today, you respond with an answer. Later, I ask you something else tangentially related to good deeds, and your mind will already be primed with information. So start priming with quali, because ultimately that is the goal of this video series. You don't necessarily have to stop after 5 minutes if you are feeling it and things are flowing. You can stop after 5 minutes too. It just depends on how you feel. I find it difficult to convince myself that I can't write for just 5 minutes. You will be surprised and amazed at how much you can accomplish when you string together enough 5-minute intervals. Oakley, 2014, suggests using the Pomodoro method where you go for 25-minute intervals. Depending on your capacity and desire, you can do this too, but it's likely you can always find 5 minutes. One progressive step. If you can't convince yourself to go for 5 minutes, consider switching it up to work for 1 minute. If that's too hard, do just one progressive thing and start to build from there. Everything we want to do in life isn't going to be that simple and easy. If you stick around long enough, the preceding sentence is something you'll get used to me saying. In the case of getting started with RW, try deconstructing the task of writing to just one progressive step. Like with many challenges we are going to face, usually the greatest opponent can be found in the mirror. We're going to face setbacks and ups and downs, but as long as we keep focused on progress by our own account, things will eventually go our way. Learn to recognize the discomfort and resistance of getting out of your comfort zone. Make it a point to reflect on how you recognize that a task was difficult, yet you were still able to persevere and progress. Over time, you will notice subtle changes happening and your capacity will grow. The main point is to continue to build your mental toughness. A friend of mine, an old-timer who played football for Stanford when they were known as the Indians, introduced me to the term intellectual brutality. It was Stanford's brand of football, smart and tough, and something most of us could use more of. Topics you should start reflecting upon. Again, you don't have to start writing just yet, but feel free to. A popular saying that I have adapted is, the best time to have started is X years ago, and the second best time is now. X in this case being whatever amount of years or time you think would have been the ideal time, with the point being the ideal time is now, because the present is what we can control. The present is a gift, and in regard to growth, has no limit except those we impose. Start writing down whatever, but if you want my opinion, start with the layout of the material. Quality is the primary focus of the video series, so you should regularly check in with yourself to see how you are doing. I'm going to keep adding things, but this is what I have so far. You can interpret it through the lens of an individual or through the lens of an organization. It can be applied meaningfully to both. Questions and writing prompts are at our Google site. Specific order, difficulty, and techniques. Go to the specific section on our Google site and look at the content related to the writing and the writing prompts. Degrees of difficulty. Start by just writing, documenting, or journaling within the parameters of quali, tada, speco. What does QOL, quality of life, even mean? What does QOL mean in your life? This specificity will focus your scope and help you with just enough structure for you to fill in the details. At this stage, just think of this as an outline and you color it in, or make some modifications. Another way you can start is by looking through the material. Did any person or idea pique your interest or curiosity? Write down some related thoughts. Do some investigating. Next, start putting together lists. Now that you have some type of organization, consider stepping up to the PPP questions. It's really up to you what order you want to do things. Feel free to start with the PPP questions if you find it beneficial. Hop around and move back and forth. The point is that you are engaging in meaningful and beneficial ways. I've made a lot of effort to organize this material in ascending difficulty so you don't feel intimidated and feel supported to continue. Now you try it. Remember, you can use this material as a primer, just rewatch a section, or the video again.